For those maybe unfamiliar, Nutanix launched our AI product, something we call Nutanix Enterprise AI, in November of last year. We've got a lot of great customers already, and we'll talk about some of those use cases. But it's our first product that we have launched that is candidly completely disconnected from the rest of the Nutanix portfolio. You can certainly use it with the components you see here. You can run it on Nutanix Kubernetes. You can run it on Nutanix Kubernetes on our hypervisor. You can use our unified storage. But Nutanix Enterprise AI, the product, can run anywhere there's Kubernetes, which means it could be our own Kubernetes. It could be OpenShift. It could be Rancher. It could be Kubernetes up in AWS or Azure. It could be Kubernetes on bare metal. You don't necessarily need a hypervisor underneath as well, because we've kind of taken this stance that we believe AI needs to have a hybrid cloud strategy for most organizations. They may do their tuning and training, maybe up at a public cloud provider. They may deploy sensitive models or models that are going to access proprietary information in their core data centers. And for those that operate at the edge, they may want inferencing. They may want to empower employees out at the edge with lighter infrastructure, maybe smaller models, and have a central management plane for this artificial intelligence that spans everything from public cloud to core data center out to the edge. So, this is where we continue to march towards. We're certainly seeing this align with, demand from, existing customers of ours who've been using our hyperconverged infrastructure for 2 years, 5 years, 12 years, as well as new customers to Nutanix who are looking to build out, this enterprise AI infrastructure. So kind of give you a different visual here. Certainly what we've seen for organizations who have started down this journey is a lot of folks start with an AI application off the shelf. So they've decided they want a chatbot, they want a digital assistant, they're going to do enterprise search, whatever the use case might be. And there's a company that does this so they don't have to go, build some bespoke solution. We see a lot of this. Typically, these off-the-shelf AI applications don't even disclose the models they're using. They have an inference engine or the ability to serve up that model internal to the app, in kind of a black box architecture. And as organizations continue to deploy these off-the-shelf AI applications, they have no centralized visibility into models that are being used, into the performance of the model or the inference engine. And also typically they start to design, just in this type of an architecture, GPU silos. So you've got GPUs that, some are fairly expensive, some are really expensive. They might be sitting around doing 15% utilization, 25% utilization. So this is silos on silos on silos with very little visibility. And so what we've started to embrace with, our customers that are marching down this path, which is, hey, let's start with some really quick to value AI applications off the shelf, is let's work with that, ISV. Let's work with that company that deploys that app or builds that app and say, what models does this application use? We're going to serve those models up and just connect your app into, our inference infrastructure. So we've certainly have seen a demand for this. A lot of our projects are around, kind of this notion of let's centralize command and control over the models that are being used. Again, think about DeepSeek. It hit the news, I don't know, on a Thursday or a Friday. Really interesting. And fast forward, not even a week later, there's a lot of commentary on we're not going to let our employees use it, or maybe there's a security risk. So having centralized control over the models that are allowed to be used allows IT, allows your organization to pull the plug or quarantine consumption of that model if they need to, for liability reasons, security reasons, export reasons. So that's just one of the kind of the many drivers we've seen of organizations starting to build out this centralized inference infrastructure. The other big piece here is you can become much more efficient in how you're using the GPUs that your organization is buying. So it's kind of summarizing what we've seen over the last year with, the majority of our customers. Again, there's a lot of great studies, whether it's Gartner, whether it's HBR, wherever it is, there's a lot of great data points that strongly suggest step one for most organizations is to deploy a large language model internally. One, any question that's being asked that large language model is now within the confines of your organization, so you have no, leakage in that regard. And two, it's a forcing function typically for the organization to start to think through from a process perspective, from a technology perspective, and from an area of responsibility perspective, who's going to be in charge of serving this model up? How do we start to build some operational muscle around, supporting the performance of the model, thinking through when we need to start scaling out, whether it's GPUs or additional nodes, to support, the growing large language model consumption. Chat-based agents, digital assistants, again, to really kind of next level the customer experience or the employee experience. Extremely popular use cases. Enterprise search, which is probably the one you see most in your LinkedIn feed, people talking about retrieval augmented generation. I mean, we've got customers themselves that generate about 1 million PDFs across multiple languages a month. And for them, instead of having someone do a control F through a bunch of documents or PDF files to try and find something and continue to kind of control F, control F, control F until they do, now they can have a conversation, with an enterprise search that's powered by AI. They ask the question, they're getting an answer back from the artificial intelligence that's pulling the information directly from documents, PDF files, even PowerPoint presentations, and then showing you the source so you can validate what the AI is bringing back to you. And then the last piece that we kind of talked about is shared services organizations building out an inference infrastructure. Here you see, a sample of some of our most strategic AI partners, whether it's NVIDIA, one from a GPU perspective, but also from a NIMS or an NVAIE perspective. Hugging Face, which is the world's largest model repository. And certainly pretty much any model you might want to test out is there. We'll talk about that integration in a minute, but also enterprise search and RAG solutions from companies like Prion, multi-language models from Mistral, really interesting GPU appliances from Liquid, and you see a bunch of others here. Happy to dive in the future on any of them. So before we jump into a little look at the product, let's understand where Nutanix Enterprise AI fits into an overall enterprise architecture. And again, in this example, we are running it on Nutanix Cloud Infrastructure to include our hypervisor. But, candidly speaking, we see folks buying Dell or HPE or Cisco or Lenovo bare metal servers with really nice GPUs in them. All that we really require is a Kubernetes platform to run on. So in this case, start the conversation, think about, the AI architecture from the Kubernetes level, because it's all container-based apps in the AI world. And then if you think about what those applications actually need to run, they need access to a model. They need, the ability to understand telemetry of what's going good, what's going wrong. And this is what we've delivered with Enterprise AI from Nutanix. So the first piece, and we'll jump into a product demo in a second, but the first piece is centralized command and control over the models that are allowed to be used. And I will say probably my biggest takeaway or lesson learned when I was back in the AI startup space is that the legal department is very much involved now. It used to be when I was having conversations on virtual desktop infrastructure or virtual infrastructure in general, we would talk to security, we would talk to compliance, and then the rest was about the business or about IT. Now, the chief legal officer has entered the chat, general counsel are in these meetings. So really, if I have any advice to kind of offer here, it's engage your legal team early. As you think kind of through AI adoption over the coming years, it's still very, very early days. You're going to want a good partnership with your legal department. Again, it's a drastically changing landscape. The ability to authorize and then decommission models, quarantine models will be really important. So the first thing we deliver is that enterprise model repository. with hooks into Hugging Face or the NVIDIA model catalog, or even manually import your own. RBAC, role-based access controls to control who's actually got access to which particular model, what app has access to which particular models, an inference endpoint. So we're now talking about serving up the model. Again, these are things we've simplified through a delightful user interface. And then the last piece, day two operations, troubleshooting performance, because now it's not just CPU and storage performance or virtual networking performance. Now it's what are the GPUs doing? Is there latency from the endpoint itself? Are the requests coming in to our inference endpoint properly formed, or do we need to go back to the application developer? That's Nutanix Enterprise AI. It runs anywhere there's Kubernetes. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you probably have seen something called GPT in a box. GPT in a box is our reference architecture that includes, essentially the full Nutanix portfolio, delivering an AI platform. So that includes our Kubernetes, includes our cloud infrastructure, unified storage, database service. It's offered up in a single SKU with the notion to make it easy for customers to get started. Again, this is just one of the many packaging options of Nutanix Enterprise AI. It's the most popular, most common that we see being deployed right now, mostly because people want to focus on the AI applications themselves. But you could also procure Nutanix Enterprise AI either standalone or with our Kubernetes as well.